The story of Shadow Generations is actually not bad. I would say it's actually pretty good. I just wish the game had a lot more time to explore certain ideas that it sets up. But as of recently, I've come to appreciate the story of Shadow Generations a lot more, and there is a lot to be praised with the story of Shadow Generations, and I wanted to just go over the things that I like about the game's story. And that's what I'm going to be getting into. I'm going to be getting into the stuff that I like about Shadow Generations and its story. But I definitely will explain what the story is a little bit, so without wasting any of your time, let's get into the story of Shadow Generations. So the story kicks off with Shadow revisiting the Space Colony Ark, and there's a reason why he's on the Space Colony Ark. He's investigating something. And why he does this, well, the Time Eater shows up and sends Shadow to his own personal white space. And before this happened, Shadow had an encounter with Black Doom. Yeah, Black Doom is back for some reason. I wonder why. And now Shadow has to reface his past once again. Now the premise does sound very simple, which yes it is, but I think it is a genuinely good continuation for Shadow's character. And you do get to learn a lot of new things about Shadow's history as a character in his past. But unfortunately, I feel that you have to watch Dark Beginnings to appreciate this stuff, and maybe without watching it, there are moments where you could still appreciate the game and what it does, but I do kind of find it to be a requirement to watch Dark Beginnings to appreciate certain scenes in this game. It definitely will have a little more impact when you do. Shadow's whole arc in this game is that he doesn't want to face his past again, but he's unfortunately forced to do that. But Shadow does wonder if there is a way he could fix this, but he's also forced with stopping Black Doom at the same time. I will get into the Gerald and Maria stuff later, but I want to talk about Black Doom's return. The way they brought back Black Doom's character in this game was the best way they could bring back his character. I really dig the concept that they introduced. It's very akin to Star Wars, but in this game it works pretty well. Black Doom is trying to bring himself back, and the only way this could work is, well, Shadow has to get angry. He has to let himself get mad. And if Shadow does let himself get mad, Black Doom will take over his body. The game does have a decent amount of time to explore this idea, but I just wish Black Doom was a slightly more prominent character in the story. I would have loved to see Black Doom torment Shadow even more, especially when you're going around the hub world. You definitely could make the argument that would get annoying over time, but I personally wouldn't have minded, especially it should have been more prominent in the levels. I think that would have made Black Doom far more of a threat as a character. That's not to say that he isn't a threat, but he could have been more of a threat if he was constantly tormenting you more. And something that I find to be a missed opportunity has to be with Sunset Heights and Chaos Islands. They almost feel slightly out of place, and you only get tormented in Sunset Heights. I do think there was some story potential there. Have Shadow comment on these places he's never been to before. Have Black Doom try to torment him as he goes through these levels. I feel that Black Doom could say something that really sticks out to Shadow and eventually affects him later on. It isn't a deal breaker or anything, cause this game has a lot of other good things with its story, but it isn't the only weird thing to come out of Shadow Gens' story. For whatever reason, when Shadow fights Sonic, he needs to get the real Chaos Emerald from him, when he probably could have used the fake one. It's been shown that a fake emerald can work, so I don't really know why Shadow needs the real one. I guess it's just more powerful. I don't know, I guess I'll just let it pass. They haven't really explored this idea all that deeply. But overall, I find the Black Doom stuff to be really interesting in this game, and I just really dig it. I just wish there was a bit more time to explore it, but there is still a little bit of time to explore it in this game. And it doesn't tie into the other stuff with Gerald and Maria terribly. Okay, now we can finally talk about this stuff. So this game properly introduces Gerald and Maria to us as actual characters, cause I'll be honest, they didn't really have much character to them to begin with. And I just gotta say, thank God that this game has the journal entries. You really get to learn a lot about the both of them. I almost didn't read them, but I'm glad that I did. I'm glad I get to know a lot more about these characters. If you've watched Dark Beginnings or are familiar with the Shadow character, you would know that Maria means a lot to Shadow, and when watching Dark Beginnings, I now understand why Shadow did what he did. I could still understand what he did in Adventure 2, but now I have a better understanding of it. When Shadow was feeling down, Maria was there to help him out, and when Maria gets killed, it's now understandable why Shadow would do what he did. And so, with Shadow being forced to face his past once again, Maria is here. Same for Gerald. Unfortunately, I don't really have a lot to say about Gerald, but I think it is cool to see a more chill version of him. But when you read the journal entries, he slowly goes insane. When Gerald and Maria show up, Shadow instantly becomes protective of the both of them, which makes a lot of sense. In fact, a lot of of things that Shadow does in this game makes a lot of sense for his character. Blankly putting it, Shadow is just Shadow in this game. The way he acts and reacts to certain situations is how I would expect Shadow to act. I'd say his character is more in line with how he acts in Sonic Adventure 2 and up to 06. And I will say that I do like his various interactions with the other characters in this game. All I could say is please give us more of this Shadow. This is the type of Shadow we need. So Maria, you would definitely expect, depending on how she acted in the past, she would act the same way in this game. So I don't know if I would say this is my favorite moment in the game, but it definitely does feel well earned. Shadow is about to lose it, but Maria, being the good friend that she is there to comfort Shadow, once again. And this ties into the game's finale. Shadow is facing Black Doom once and for all, and he's also there to fulfill Maria's wish. And I guess this kind of goes to show how genuinely important she was to him. But of course, at some point, Shadow has to say goodbye, and that's what he's forced to do. But now he's able to properly say goodbye. It's hard for him to do, but Maria tells him that she'll always be in his heart. It's kinda sad, but also heartwarming at the same time. Shadow runs off, letting Gerald and Maria fade away, shedding a tear and ending the game. So that's everything I wanted to cover with Shadow Generations and its story. What do I think of it? What are my final verdicts? I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's a good continuation for Shadow and his story, and it does a good job ending it off. And the idea of it works pretty well, even if I think they could have done a lot more with it. I do like the concept of Black Doom trying to bring himself back through Shadow, and Maria being there to help him out. And I do feel that this game fills out a hole for Shadow's character. Like, I now finally know who this guy is and what his deal was. I now understand why Maria was so important to him, and I'm curious to see where he'll go after this game. And it's also pretty nice to finally know Maria as a character, and same for Gerald. There's entire journal pages that I almost didn't read through, but I do genuinely recommend you do read through them. And the ending to the game is pretty great. It's sad, but Shadow finally gets to say goodbye to his family once and for all. And there is some optional dialogue in this game which I didn't really engage with, but it is pretty interesting to look into. There are a few small things I can bring up, but I've covered as much ground as I can with the story. The story does have a few holes in there, but overall it's still pretty good. I can outweigh the negatives with the good. And I've come to appreciate the story of this game, and I don't really have much else to say about it, so that's it. I'll see you guys around, and bye.